Hey guys, tonight we begin with something different. Something slow, deliberate, and wrapped in the gentle rhythm of centuries past. We're stepping away from the chaos of modern life and into the hushed corridors of medieval monasteries, where time moved not by the frantic tick of clocks, but by the soft chime of bells calling souls to prayer in the darkness. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. It's the year 1347. The sun has long since disappeared behind stone walls that rise like silent guardians against the night sky. Somewhere in the English countryside, perhaps in the shadow of rolling hills or beside a meandering river, stands a monastery. Not grand like the cathedrals that pierce the heavens, but solid, humble, built for purpose rather than glory. Tonight, we're not visitors peering through museum glass. We're residents, bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, living a life so removed from our modern world that it might as well be another planet entirely. The monastery never truly sleeps. Even as darkness settles over the land like a heavy wool blanket, the rhythm of monastic life continues. It's a rhythm you've never experienced, one that would challenge every assumption you have about rest, productivity, and the very nature of time itself. Because in this place, night isn't for sleeping through. Night is for something else entirely. Brother Thomas pulls his rough woolen habit closer as he moves through the cloister. The stone beneath his sandaled feet holds the day's warmth, but barely. October air seeps through every gap in the ancient walls, carrying with it the scent of dying leaves and the promise of winter's approach. His breath forms small clouds in the moonlight streaming through the arcade's arches. This is his world. These corridors, these cells, this chapel where he'll spend the next several hours not in rest, but in a kind of wakeful devotion that modern minds struggle to comprehend. The bells that woke him still echo faintly in his memory. Not the harsh alarm of urgency, but the measured bronze voice that calls the community to matins, the first of 7 daily prayer services. It's past midnight now, that mysterious hour when the veil between earth and heaven seems thinnest. The darkness isn't something to be banished with electric light or filled with entertainment. Here, darkness is embraced, made sacred, transformed into something that nurtures the soul rather than frightens it. As Brother Thomas enters the chapel, he joins a procession of shadows. 30 other monks move like ghosts through the nave, their movements unhurried, deliberate. No one speaks. Speech is reserved for specific hours, specific purposes. This is the Great Silence, a concept so foreign to our chattering, connected world that it would drive most modern people to distraction within hours. But here, silence isn't empty. It's full of prayer, full of contemplation, full of a presence that doesn't need words to make itself known. The chapel itself defies every notion of medieval gloom you might harbor. Yes, it's lit only by candles, their flames dancing against stone columns worn smooth by centuries of passing hands. But there's something almost magical about the way that flickering light transforms the space. Shadows don't hide here, they reveal. The carved faces of saints seem to breathe in the candlelight. The wooden choir stalls, polished by generations of use, gleam like dark water. Every surface holds the patina of prayer, the accumulated devotion of countless souls who have stood in this exact spot, breathing the same air, singing the same ancient melodies. The monks take their places in the choir with practiced precision. Each knows exactly where he belongs, which psalm he'll chant, which verse is his to lead. This isn't rehearsed performance, it's organic ritual, grown from years of repetition until it becomes as natural as breathing. Brother Thomas settles into his stall, the wood worn to fit bodies like his, shaped by the weight of contemplation. And then it begins. Not with fanfare or announcement, but with a single voice rising in the darkness. The cantor's voice carries the first line of a psalm, and like water finding its course, the other voices join. Not in harmony as we understand it, but in unison, creating something that isn't quite music and isn't quite speech. It's plainsong, Gregorian chant, a form of prayer that uses melody not to entertain, but to elevate, to carry words beyond their earthly meaning and into something transcendent. The Latin words flow like a river in the night. Most of the monks understand their meaning, but comprehension isn't the point. The point is surrender, the gradual dissolution of individual will into something larger. As the psalms continue, Brother Thomas feels his breathing slow, his heartbeat aligned with the rhythm of the chant. This is what night prayer does in a medieval monastery. It doesn't energize or stimulate. It settles, it deepens, it draws the soul inward and downward into a kind of rest that has nothing to do with sleep. Time moves differently here. Without clocks to segment the hours into productive units, time becomes fluid, measured not by efficiency, but by completeness. Each psalm is given its full due. Each prayer is allowed to breathe. There's no rushing toward the next thing, because there is no next thing. Only this eternal present moment where earth touches heaven in the simple act of voices raised in darkness. The air grows thick with incense, sweet and resinous, curling upward like visible prayers. It clings to wool habits, settles into stone, becomes part of the very atmosphere of the place. Brother Thomas breathes it deeply, feeling it fill his lungs along with the chanted words. This is his oxygen now, this mixture of prayer and smoke and ancient air that has been breathed by thousands before him. Between the psalms, silence returns, but it's different now, warmer somehow, as if the prayers have heated the very darkness. In these moments of quiet, the only sounds are the subtle ones, the rustle of a habit as a monk shifts position, the soft flutter of candle flames in an unfelt draught, the distant hoot of an owl somewhere in the monastery gardens. These aren't distractions. They're part of the prayer, the world joining its voice to the human chorus. Brother Thomas closes his eyes, not from fatigue, but from a kind of fullness. Behind his eyelids, he sees not darkness, but a warm golden glow that seems to emanate from within. This is what happens when night becomes prayer, instead of simply the absence of day. The darkness doesn't oppress, it embraces. It becomes a womb of contemplation where the soul can grow and expand without the harsh light of day to shrink it back to ordinary size. The service continues, unhurried and complete. Each reading is given its weight, each response its proper reverence. There's no sense of performance here, no audience to please or impress. This is prayer in its purest form, offered not because it achieves anything measurable, but because it's right, because it's what human souls were made to do when freed from the distractions of commerce and ambition, and the endless noise of secular life. As the final psalm echoes into silence, Brother Thomas feels something he can't quite name. Not tiredness, though his body is ready for rest. Not satisfaction, though his soul feels fed. It's more like completion, as if he's just finished a conversation with someone who understands him perfectly without need for explanation. The night prayer has done its work, transforming the darkness from something to be endured into something to be treasured. The monks begin to file out, their movements as measured as their arrival. No one speaks, but there's a quality to their silence now that wasn't there before. It's charged somehow, alive with the energy of shared devotion. They move like men who have just touched something eternal and are still carrying traces of it on their fingers. Brother Thomas doesn't return immediately to his cell. Instead, he finds himself drawn to one of the side chapels, a smaller space barely large enough for 3 or 4 souls to kneel together. Here, a single candle burns before a painted wooden crucifix, its flame steady and unwavering in the still air. This is where the night reveals its deepest secrets, not in grand gestures or dramatic revelations, but in the simple act of remaining present when the rest of the world has surrendered to unconsciousness. He kneels on the stone floor, feeling its cold hardness through his woolen habit. There are no cushions here, no concessions to comfort. The medieval mind doesn't seek to eliminate discomfort, but to transform it, to make even physical hardship a form of prayer. His knees will ache by dawn, but that ache will become part of his offering, a small sacrifice joined to the greater mystery of suffering, made sacred. In the candlelight, his hands look different than they do in daylight, paler, more ethereal, as if they belong not quite to this world, but to some realm where flesh and spirit meet and merge. He folds them together, not in the casual gesture of modern prayer, but with the deliberate precision of a craftsman handling sacred tools. Prayer, in this place and time, is a craft like any other. It requires skill, patience, and above all, practice. The silence here is different from the silence in the main chapel. There, silence was communal, shared among 30 souls moving in unison. Here, it's personal, intimate, the kind of quiet that allows a man to hear not just his own heartbeat, but the deeper rhythm beneath it, the pulse that connects him to everything that lives and breathes and seeks meaning in the darkness. Brother Thomas begins to pray, not with words, but with something deeper. His breathing slows until it matches the rhythm of the candle flame, steady and measured. His thoughts, usually scattered like leaves in an autumn wind, begin to settle and center. This is what the medieval mystics called lectio divina, divine reading, though no book is needed here. The text being read is written in candlelight and shadow, in the ache of knees against stone, in the gradual surrender of will to something larger and more ancient than individual desire. Time becomes meaningless in this smaller space. Minutes might be passing, or hours. The candle burns lower, but slowly, as if even fire respects the sacred nature of this vigil. Brother Thomas feels his consciousness shift, moving away from the concerns of the day towards something more fundamental. Not sleep, which would be mere unconsciousness, but a kind of waking rest that refreshes the soul rather than just the body. Through the small window beside the altar, he can see the monastery garden shrouded in moonlight, the herb beds where Brother Benedict tends his medicinal plants, the vineyard where Brother Martin prunes the vines that will produce wine for the sacred mass, the cemetery where generations of monks lie buried, their stones worn smooth by weather and time. All of it sleeps under the same moon that illuminates his prayer, connected by invisible threads of devotion and purpose. A sound reaches him from somewhere deep in the monastery, not alarming, just present. Perhaps Brother Anselm, making his rounds as night porter, ensuring the gates are secured and the buildings safe. Or Brother Luke in the scriptorium, copying manuscripts by candlelight, his pen scratching across parchment in a rhythm as regular as prayer itself. The monastery never truly rests because there's always someone awake, someone keeping watch, someone ensuring that the flame of contemplation never dies completely from his knees. Not. Brother Thomas rises because his prayer is finished, but because his body has delivered its message of limitation. Even in this sacred space, he remains human, bound by flesh that grows weary and joints that protest prolonged kneeling. But this too is part of the prayer, this acknowledgement of human frailty in the face of divine infinity. The medieval monk doesn't seek to transcend his humanity, but to sanctify it, to make even weakness a form of worship. He moves through the corridors toward his cell, passing doors behind which his brothers sleep or pray, or lie wakeful in contemplation. Each cell is nearly identical, furnished with nothing but the barest necessities. A narrow bed, a wooden cross, a small shelf for the few books each monk is permitted to own. No decorations, no personal belongings that might distract from the essential work of the soul. Poverty here isn't punishment, but freedom, the liberation that comes from needing nothing that the world cannot provide. His own cell waits exactly as he left it, the small space that serves as his entire private world. The bed, if it can be called that, is little more than a straw mattress on a wooden frame, covered by a single woolen blanket. The pillow is a rolled cloth that will leave his neck stiff by morning. By modern standards, it's barely habitable. By medieval monastic standards, it's perfectly adequate, containing everything necessary for a soul to do its work. But Brother Thomas doesn't immediately lie down. Instead, he sits on the edge of his bed, hands folded in his lap, and continues the prayer that began in the chapel. This is the secret of monastic night prayer that modernity has forgotten. Prayer doesn't end when the formal service concludes. It continues, flowing like an underground river through every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. The chapel prayer was communal, but this solitary continuation is where the real transformation happens. Outside his small window, the night deepens. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tower chimes the hour, its bronze voice carrying across fields and forests to other monasteries, other communities of souls who have chosen this strange life of voluntary limitation. The sound connects him to a vast network of prayer that spans continents, a web of contemplation that never sleeps because somewhere, always, someone is awake and praying. The darkness in his cell is complete now, broken only by the faint moonlight filtering through the small window. But it's not oppressive darkness. It's welcoming, like the darkness of a womb or a cave where something new can grow without the harsh scrutiny of daylight. Brother Thomas feels his breathing slow even further, matching the rhythm of the night itself, the great inhalation and exhalation of a world at rest. He thinks, if thinking is the right word, about the paradox of this life. By modern standards, it seems wasteful, even tragic. Young men entering monasteries, giving up careers, families, the chance to make their mark on the world. But sitting here in the darkness, feeling the deep peace that comes only from complete surrender, Brother Thomas knows something that the world outside these walls has forgotten. Some treasures can only be found by those willing to stop looking for them. Some voices can only be heard in silence. Some light can only be seen in darkness. His eyelids grow heavy, but he doesn't fight the drowsiness. Sleep, when it comes, will be different from the unconscious collapse of the exhausted modern world. It will be conscious surrender, the deliberate choice to trust the darkness with his vulnerable sleeping soul. Even in sleep, the prayer will continue, moving from the conscious mind into deeper places where words aren't needed and the heart speaks directly to the heart of everything. The monastery bell tower strikes 3, its bronze voice rolling across the sleeping countryside like a gentle wave. Brother Thomas lies still on his straw mattress, listening to the sound fade into the night air. Sleep has come and gone in fragments, as it always does during the monastic hours. Not the deep, unconscious plunge of exhaustion, but something more like floating, drifting in and out of awareness, while remaining somehow connected to the rhythm of prayer that never truly stops. This is what modern minds struggle to grasp about medieval rest. It wasn't the 8-hour block of unconsciousness we've trained ourselves to expect. Sleep came in pieces, woven between prayers, between contemplation, between the small tasks that kept the monastery functioning even in the deepest hours of night. Brother Thomas might doze for 2 hours, then wake naturally to pray, then sleep again until the next bell. His body has learned to find restoration in these fragments, like a plant that gathers dew drop by drop rather than waiting for rain. He rises without the jarring shock of an alarm, his internal clock tuned to rhythms older than any mechanical timepiece. The cold air hits his face like a blessing, sharp and clean, carrying the scent of frost on stone. and the distant promise of dawn still hours away. His bare feet find the familiar path across his cell's floor. Every board and stone, memorized through countless nights of similar risings. The corridor outside his cell breathes with the presence of sleeping brothers. Behind each wooden door, souls rest in the peculiar peace that comes from lives stripped of unnecessary complexity. No one tosses restlessly, worried about stock prices or social media notifications, or the thousand anxious distractions that plague the modern midnight hour. Their concerns are simpler, deeper. Did I pray well today? Did I serve faithfully? Did I move closer to the divine mystery that draws all seekers into its embrace? Brother Thomas makes his way toward the scriptorium, where Brother Augustine keeps vigil over the manuscripts. Even in deepest night, someone must tend the books, ensuring that no candle gutters dangerously near precious parchment. No mouse finds its way to the carefully copied pages that preserve the wisdom of ages. The scriptorium is the monastery's beating heart, where knowledge flows like blood through the body of the church. He finds Brother Augustine bent over a partially completed Gospel of Matthew, his pen moving with the steady precision of decades of practice. The illuminated capital letters glow like jewels in the candlelight, their gold leaf catching and throwing back the flame's warm radiance. This is prayer made visible, devotion transformed into art, so beautiful it makes the viewer weep without knowing why. Brother, Augustine whispers without looking up from his work. His voice carries the particular quality of those who spend their lives in silence, words made precious by their rarity. The ink flows well tonight. The darkness helps it dry true. Brother Thomas nods, understanding. There's something about night that perfects certain kinds of work. The quiet allows for concentration impossible during daylight hours. The cool air keeps the parchment from warping. The stillness lets the hand move with a steadiness that daylight's distractions would disturb. Some of the monastery's most beautiful manuscripts are born in these midnight hours, when the boundary between craft and prayer dissolves completely. He settles onto a wooden stool nearby, not to work, but simply to keep company with the scribe. Companionship in silence is one of the monastery's greatest gifts, the ability to share presence without the need for words. They sit together in the warm circle of candlelight, while Brother Augustine's pen scratches across the parchment with the soft rhythm of rain on leaves. The scriptorium itself seems alive in the darkness. Shelves of completed manuscripts line the walls, their leather bindings worn smooth by handling. These aren't just books in the modern sense, repositories of information to be consumed and discarded. Each one represents months or years of painstaking labor, every letter formed with the care usually reserved for prayer. Because that's what they are. Prayers made manifest in ink and parchment. Devotions that will outlive the hands that created them. Brother Thomas watches Brother Augustine work, marveling at the older monk's steady concentration. The illuminated letter, taking shape under his pen, is a work of art that would command fortunes in any century. Yet it's created not for profit, but for glory, not for fame, but for the simple joy of offering something beautiful to the divine mystery that permeates every aspect of monastic life. The gold leaf catches the candlelight and throws it back. Transform itself has become a tiny, as if the letter sun burning on the page. A sound from the kitchen draws Brother Thomas away from the scriptorium. Brother Francis begins his work before dawn, preparing the simple bread that will sustain the community through another day. The kitchen, like every space in the monastery, becomes sacred through the quality of attention brought to it. Kneading dough isn't just food preparation, but a form of meditation. The repetitive motion, creating a rhythm that aligns the baker's soul with the turning of the seasons and the cycles of growth and harvest that sustain all life. He deep in his work, Hans finds Brother Francis already white with flour, moving with the unconscious grace of long practice. The bread dough responds to his touch like a living thing, elastic and warm, holding within itself the potential to nourish both body and spirit. This is another mystery of monastic life, the way even the most mundane tasks become charged with meaning when performed with complete attention and offered as prayer. "The yeast is eager tonight," Brother Francis murmurs, his voice barely audible above the soft slapping of dough against the wooden work surface. It rises quickly in this weather. The loaves will be ready before prime. Brother Thomas nods, understanding that this isn't merely practical information but a kind of prophecy, a reading of the signs that govern the monastery's daily rhythm. Brother Francis has been baking bread for 30 years, and his hands know truths about grain and weather and the mysterious alchemy that transforms simple ingredients into the staff of life. His knowledge is embodied, lived, earned through decades of pre-dawn risings and careful attention to the subtle changes that mark the passage of seasons. The warmth from the ovens spreads through the kitchen, creating a pocket of comfort in the monastery's stone embrace. This warmth will soon fill the refectory, where the brothers will gather for their simple morning meal. But for now, it exists only here, in this moment, shared between two souls who have learned to find the sacred in the ordinary rhythms of work and rest. Brother Thomas helps without being asked, his hands finding the familiar motions of shaping loaves. There's something deeply satisfying about this work, the way the dough responds to pressure and patience, becoming, through human touch, something greater than the sum of its parts. Each loaf will feed several brothers, sustaining their bodies for another day of prayer and service. But more than that, each loaf carries within it the love and attention of its maker, becoming a form of communion that begins long before it reaches the altar. The kitchen fills with the scent of baking bread, that most fundamental of human smells, carrying within it memories of every hearth that has ever warmed a family, every harvest that has ever filled a storehouse, every blessing that has ever been spoken over grain transformed into sustenance. Brother Thomas breathes deeply, feeling the warmth and fragrance settle into his lungs alongside the prayers that have become as natural as breathing. Outside the kitchen window, the first hint of dawn begins to pale the eastern sky. Not yet sunrise, but the subtle lightning that tells those who know how to read such signs that the night's deepest hour has passed. Soon the bell will ring for lauds, calling the community to the prayer that greets each new day. But for now, there's still time for this quiet work, this gentle preparation for the light that will soon flood the world with possibility. Brother Thomas feels the night settling around him like a familiar garment, warm and protective. He understands now what draws men to this life, what makes them willing to trade the world's glittering promises for this simple rhythm of prayer and work and rest. It isn't escape from life, but immersion in it, diving so deep into the essential mysteries of existence that everything else falls away except what truly matters. Love, service, the gradual transformation of the human heart into something capable of holding infinite tenderness without breaking. The dough beneath his hands seems to pulse with life. And for a moment, Brother Thomas feels connected not just to Brother Francis beside him, but to every baker who has ever risen before dawn to prepare sustenance for others, every mother who has kneaded love into flour and water, every soul who has understood that feeding others is a form of prayer older than words. This is what the night reveals to those patient enough to remain awake within it. The vast web of connection that binds all living things together in a dance too beautiful for daylight eyes to see. The bell tower chimes 4 times, each bronze note dissolving into the darkness like ripples on still water. Brother Thomas sets down the shaped loaf and brushes flour from his hands, feeling the familiar weight of another night's vigil drawing to its close. Soon the eastern windows will catch the first pale threads of dawn, and the great silence will give way to the gentle stirring of a community awakening to prayer. But something has shifted in these dark hours. The restless anxiety that drives the modern world, that constant hunger for more, faster, louder, has no place here. In its stead grows something quieter, but infinitely more nourishing. The deep satisfaction that comes not from consuming, but from offering, not from achieving, but from surrendering, not from speaking, but from listening to the profound silence that holds all words within itself. This is what the medieval night offers those brave enough to enter it fully. Not escape from the world, but immersion in its deepest truths. Not the frantic sleep of exhaustion, but the conscious rest of souls aligned with rhythms older than empires, more enduring than stone. As you drift toward your own rest tonight, perhaps you'll carry with you some echo of this ancient peace. Perhaps you'll remember that darkness need not be banished but can be embraced. That silence can be fuller than noise. That sometimes the most profound journey is the one that leads not outward toward new horizons, but inward toward the quiet center, where all seeking ends and all finding begins. Sweet dreams, and may your own small hours be touched by the gentle presence that moves through monastery corridors still, blessing all who choose depth over speed, contemplation over consumption, and the eternal rhythm of prayer over the restless turning of an anxious world.